And we begin the news by telling you that at least 60 bodies have been recovered following a boat accident in Niger State. According to a release by the press secretary to the council chairman of Mukwa local government, and that is Abubakar Dakani, 10 survivors have been found. It disclosed that the boat was carrying over 300 passengers when it capsized at the notorious Bajibo River in Mukwa local government area of Niger State on Tuesday evening. The statement added that rescue efforts in collaboration with the State Emergency Management Agency and locals are ongoing to recover those who are missing. And now to security matters. The senator representing Borno South in the National Assembly, Ali Ndume, has called on President Bola Tinubu to hire services of military contractors to wipe out the remnants of Boko Haram terrorists in Borno State. Ndume, who hailed the gallant performance of the Nigerian military and civilian JTF, however, said they were ill-equipped to carry out the tasks of eliminating the remaining insurgents in the northeast. He said even the superpower of the world hired military contractors to aid them in their warfare. Ndume made the call against the backdrop of the killing of 6 farmers by Boko Haram terrorists in Ngushi Gwaza local government area of Borno State and the abduction of 5 others, including women, on Monday. And now to discuss this further, we're joined by security expert and executive director, Alexia Trust Foundation, Emmanuel Ekule. Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining us, and a very good evening to you. So let's get started, shall we? Welcome. Let's start. What are your thoughts? Please, if you can help us to remove your earpiece that you have on so that you can hear us clearly. So we can also hear you clearly as well. So help us to disconnect your earpiece. But I'd like to ask to begin with what your thoughts are on the statement by Senator Ali Ndume urging the president to hire the services of military contractors to wipe out the remnants of Boko Haram terrorists in Borno State.
A lot has been happening in the country, and I keep saying and I keep emphasizing that the government yet is not ready yet to actually address issues of insecurity in the country. For a long time now, we have been saying...
Well, unfortunately, we would have to bring that interview for another time. Away from that now, the House of Representatives on Wednesday rejected the Commander of the Federal Republic CFR honor announced by President Bola Tinubu in his independency address to the nation to be conferred on the Speaker of the House, and that's Judith Abbas. The House also called on President Tinubu to confer on the office of the Speaker the national honor of Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger, GCON, insisting that the officer of the Speaker, or rather the office of the Speaker, is higher than that of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, who is to be conferred with GCON. This followed the adoption of a motion moved by the deputy spokesperson of the House, Philip Agbache, with 248 others during plenary in Abuja. Now, moving the motion, Agbache explained that the National Assembly is constitutionally established as a bicameral legislature comprising 2 equal chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Let's also tell you that the People's Democratic Party has described the 64th Independent Day speech by President Bola Tinubu as another lethargic and windy rhetoric of false performance claims scripted to delude Nigerians in the face of abysmal failure of the All Progressives Congress administration. PDP, in a statement signed by its National Publicity Secretary, Debo Olugunagba, said Nigerians are appalled that the president's speech did not address issues or prefer any solution to the myriads of economic and security problems created by the APC government, for which Nigerians are hurting. The party said Tinubu has further confirmed the insensitivity of his administration towards the plight and demands by Nigerians. The president in the speech had assured that his administration is committed to finding sustainable solutions to alleviate the suffering of Nigerians and its citizens.
as your president, I assure you that we are committed to finding sustainable solutions to alleviate the suffering of our citizens. Once again, I plead for your patience as the reforms we are implementing show positive signs, and we are beginning to see the light at the end.
Now, President Bola Tinubu, during his Independence Day address to Nigerians on Monday, announced a 30-day national youth conference aimed at addressing pressing national issues. The confab comes at a time when young Nigerians are grappling with the high cost of living, increasing electricity tariffs and soaring fuel prices. News Center's Bettina Nweli reports.
The youth of Nigeria, representing over 60% of the country's population, have been the hardest hit by the current economic realities. Inflation has driven up the cost of essential goods, and fuel prices have nearly tripled since the removal of subsidies, creating a ripple effect across transportation and food costs. On top of this, recent electricity tariff hikes have further strained household incomes, making life increasingly difficult for many families.
The way the things is going on in this country, I don't think the transport fare, everything is too much. I think if we can gather youth and hear what they are saying, because youth have more things to say, I think that would be very good if they talk.
It's not going to solve all the problem, but at least the youth will be able to voice out what the challenge is, some of their grievances. They will be able to bring it to the table, and then all of them will be able to discuss more about it.
So due to skyrocketing of food prices, other consumer commodities that cause untold hardship on the people, not only the youth, but the youth suffers the most because why? They are the ones that are very energetic and still yet unemployed.
President Bola Tinubu, aware of the mounting frustrations, has initiated a 30-day National Youth Conference to hear directly from the younger generation about the challenges they face and to seek solutions.
Who constitute more than 60% of our population. It will provoke meaningful dialogue and empower our young people to participate actively in nation building.
The government hopes this youth-centered dialogue will chart a path towards economic relief and structural reforms.
I don't think there's anything bad in that, because I think progress starts from discussion, raising problems, bringing them to light, and then sitting down to negotiate a way forward. Now, the issues surrounding the conference, part of what you've identified is how do you select the delegates? How do you select the representatives? Then also there's the worrisome aspect of the budget, because 30 days for a confab. We just finished United Nations General Assembly, which is the largest meeting in the whole world, the most significant. 5 days, done and dusted.
The rising cost of living in particular has sparked public outcry, with many Nigerians using the 64th Independence Day to call for government intervention to cushion the effects of inflation. While the government may be seeking youth input, many are watching closely to see if this initiative will lead to tangible changes in policy or if it will be seen as just another consultation exercise with little impact on the ground. In Lagos, for News Central, I am Bettina Nweli.
You're watching News Now on News Central TV. Still to come, President Tinubu goes on annual leave in the UK. We'll tell you more after the break. Join us again. The Nigerian High Commission in South Africa joined the rest of the world in celebrating Nigeria's 64th independence. The celebrations held in Pretoria were attended by foreign dignitaries in South Africa and Nigerians in general. Now, this year's independence celebrations come amid widespread frustration. Inflation is at a record high, and the Naira's devaluation has eroded purchasing power. Meanwhile, Nigerians in South Africa have expressed mixed feelings about the celebrations. News Centro's Bogani Ziziba reports.
The celebrations were marked with traditional dishes, refreshing drinks and music that resonates with the essence of Nigeria. This gathering reflects not just festivity, but a strong bond among Nigerian community in South Africa. Here, amidst dignitaries and fellow Nigerians, the spirit of unity and resilience is palpable.
This occasion is a moment of pride for all Nigerians, both at home and in diaspora, as we reflect on the journey of our great nation, its history, its achievements, and its future. Today, we celebrate not just Nigerian independence, but also our collective progress as a people and a nation dedicated to unity, diversity, and resilience.
The day signified not only Nigeria's independence, but also enduring friendship between South Africa and Nigeria.
Many Nigerians made personal sacrifices so that South Africa could be free from apartheid rule. We should therefore, as South Africa and Nigeria, spare no effort in taking every step necessary in consolidating and deepening these bonds of friendship and solidarity.
However, while the celebrations bring joy, beneath the surface lies a call for patience. Some Nigerians express hope for their government to address pressing issues back home.
It's been over 62 years of wrath. And now that we're in power, we're trying to reform. And you know, reform takes quite a while to start gesticulating. So my message to Nigeria is that please trust the process. We're working to ensure that we lay the right foundation for Nigeria, for the project Nigeria to start work.
And Nigeria is going to come out of it. Though we are having some challenges during this period, but it's been progressive with the current government.
Mixed sentiments arise as some call for accountability as economic challenges weigh heavily on the hearts of many.
Nigeria is supposed to be the giant of Africa, but contrary to that, the leadership has a problem. Nigeria has leadership problem. If we can get the right leadership, Nigeria is capable of topping the global charts. Economy-wise, intelligence, skills, in all areas of life.
We want Nigeria to be great again. We want good economy, improve in economy, better policies, good governance, better international relationship with other communities and countries, so that we can have a great African again, starting from great Nigerian.
Amidst the challenges Nigeria faces, the celebration serves as a reminder of Nigeria's remarkable journey, yet reveals the echoes of a nation longing for stability and progress. At the Nigerian High Commissioner in Pretoria for News Central, Bongani Sisibe.
President Bola Tinubu will depart Abuja on Wednesday for the United Kingdom to begin a 2-week vacation, part of his yearly leave. According to a statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Tinubu will use the 2 weeks as a working vacation and a retreat to reflect on his administration's economic reforms. The statement added that the president will return to the country after the leave expires. Now, in the aftermath of devastating floods in Nigeria's Borno State, the Center for Advocacy, Transparency and Accountability Initiative and the Unique Care and Support Foundation have extended a donation of 10,200,000 naira to support education and hasten the recovery process. The funds will be used to provide educational reforms, resources for children affected by the disaster and help communities rebuild and recover from the devastation. News Central's Umaru Kirawa reports.
Communities in Borno State are starting to see signs of recovery and hope in the aftermath of the devastating floods. One major challenge now is the impact the flood had on schools that are not habitable, and in most cases, in the stage of outright collapse. Schools that have not been severely affected are havens for the displaced. The government has taken a step to reopen schools that are considered safe. However, the return of children without necessary kits seems to be another source of concern.
The rest of Nigeria is in week 3 for schooling. We are just starting week 1 for almost all our schools. And some of our schools will start witnessing week 1 in the next 2 weeks to come, because there are like 5 or 6 schools that have not dried, that we're waiting for the soil to dry to see what effect it has in our buildings. Then there are other schools that still have victims. We are trying to move them to camps because the government is now trying to adopt camp marcha.
A check of 10,020,000 naira being presented to the Borno State Ministry of Education to aid in supplying educational materials to schools affected in Maiduguri and Jere.
We support with the sum of 10 million naira, 20,000 naira, as well as pledging to support the government within the coming week with 700 kitted bags with schools, kitted bags with books, which will support the returns of children. This is in a view to seeing how we can protect education from attack as it is being discussed globally.
Our support is just a drop in the ocean to ensure that few children out of the many are able to get. We believe that this is just the beginning. More partners are coming in to support.
Accelerating the recovery of educational institutions severely impacted by the recent flooding is the aim of the funding.
Somebody who gives you 10 million naira, if he can afford, will give you $10 million one day. This amount can provide uniform for approximately 700 students. Uniforms with shoes and socks.
The government says ensuring that children can continue their education despite the challenges posed by the floods is what it is also targeting. The major challenge now is the about 800,000 out-of-school and street children wandering. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
A video showing the detention of male and female suspects together by officers of the Lagos State Police Command has gone viral on social media, sparking comments and criticism. In the video, which also shows a minor in detention, the narrator explained that the suspects were apprehended for walking around. News Central's Omolola Ololade had a chat with the Lagos Police PRO, who explained that there was more to the post than what was shared. Here's a report.
Together in this cell. More people see small picking with children. You people should come to our aid. We are in Maroko police station.
Adult, a male and female suspect detained together by the police alongside a minor. According to the narrator, they were apprehended for aimlessly walking late at night.
See where we are. Please, Nigerians, we need help.
This video has since gone viral and has once again worked up angry reactions and comments. But the Lagos State Police Command has responded with another video of its own, showing that the area of detention was just a temporary holding area.
They would only be kept at the open cell where the charge room, that is back of the charge room.
Speaking exclusively with News Central's reporter, the Lagos Police PRO explained that the initial video did not capture the full story.
In response to the repeated request from Lake Resident Association, the DPO carried out the raid, and pending when this screening would happen or pending when it will be concluded, they have to be kept somewhere, and they can't just be kept where they can easily walk out of the station. So we call that place a holding area where they will be. And the holding area, the way it is built, is within view of officers at the charge room, otherwise known as the counter. The narrator skewed the facts, saying, oh, male and female together detained. Like I said, it's not detention. If someone is detained, the person would not have his or her phone with them. So that's not detention. And the person also did not show the other side of that cell that shows the view of the charge room where the officers are seated. In our video that we posted, we showed the two cells, the male cell and the female cell. If it was a cell, definitely we would not put them together, and we have never put them together, and we don't intend to put them together.
This is just an open passage.
The police continue to receive criticism from citizens concerning its modus operandi, especially concerning arrest and detention. But the PRO insists the force is doing all it can to further win the trust of and strengthen its relationship with the citizens. In Lagos for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
The trucking industry plays a vital role in Nigeria's economy, facilitating the movement of goods and services, with several government initiatives designed to curb the activities of extortionists in the maritime industry. Its impact on the haulage sector has remained unabated, as the number of extortion checkpoints has doubled since 2022. News Central's maritime reporter Neoma Obi Asolo has the details. Take a look.
The growing number of extortion points in the maritime haulage has continued to grow, stalling both the sector and Nigeria's economy, with the perpetrators now operating openly with impunity. The activities have remained unchecked as the extortionists at Lagos seaports and along the economic community of West African states corridors have severe impacts on trade facilitation, seamless cargo evacuation, port security, human lives, the maritime sector, ease of doing business, the economy, and Nigeria's international image. The question begging for an answer is, how has the government's intervention and calls for collaboration to address the menace at Tinkan Port, Apapa Port, Maitu, Lagos, Badagry Expressway known for this extortion fared?
For the shortest time, in the longest time that we've been on this struggle, I think this is the first time that the government seems a bit, concerned and sincere.
According to the Nigerian Port Authority report of 2022, the extortion points along the Lagos port corridors was 30, but has in recent times increased to about 60, with truckers paying as much as 70,000 daily.
Because I was able to interview one of them. Now, why are you acting this way? Why are you beating our drivers? Why are you damaging our trucks? And he said, you guys block the way where our members, can have their own means of, daily bread. Okay, I said to him that if we're able to clear the gridlock, will you people stop? But they didn't stop because from their members, they can only collect 200, 500. But from truckers, they collect one checkpoint, one critical checkpoint along Lagos Badagry Expressway, collect 5,000. 5,000 times 100 trucks. Do you know how much that is? Times 1 month. That's running to billions.
The funny aspect of it is that these hoodlums, they will invite LASMA or any government to come and tow away your truck. If you resist to give, if a driver refuses to give them money, they will not investigate what's surrounding the mobilization of that truck at that spot. They will now say you are causing obstruction. We are towing away your truck. And sometimes this hoodlum, they will deliberately immobilize this truck by cutting the hose brake, or even, bring out the driver or deflate the tire and invite LASMA to come and tow away the trucks.
The haulage subsector, being the largest employer of labor in the maritime industry, contributing significantly to the GDP and the lifeline of the port and supply chain, is under threat.
The way forward is government sincerity. If there is no sincerity of purpose, then we are not on the round table yet, and all hands must be on deck.
With the extortion contributing to about 20% overhead cost, Nigeria's image and the impact on GDP, this menace must be addressed headlong. Addressing extortion in the maritime haulage sector requires coordinated and sustained responses from law enforcement and government authorities. In Lagos, for News Central, Neoma Obi Asolo.
Welcome back. As cybercrime continues to escalate across the globe, African businesses and government institutions are increasingly becoming prime targets. According to the Cybersecurity Ventures 2022 report, cybercrime is expected to cost the world $10.5 trillion annually by 2025, making it one of the most lucrative criminal enterprises. In Africa, the situation is particularly dire, with the continent experiencing a surge in cybercrime, including ransomware attacks, phishing scams, and data breaches. Now, to tackle this ever-growing threat, a leading South African technology company has stepped up to the challenge by harnessing the power of artificial intelligence, AI, to protect organizations from cyber threats. And now to some sad news here. The International Organization for Migration says rescue workers are searching for 75 people believed to be missing after smugglers forced them to swim in open sea off Djibouti's coast. With 48 persons already confirmed dead, the UN's migration agency said it was the second deadliest disaster on the route this year, making 2024 the deadliest on record. The nighttime incident involved 2 boats carrying 320 people from Yemen, a perilous journey on the so-called Eastern Route for migrants from Africa. Each year, tens of thousands of migrants brave the Eastern Route from the Horn of Africa, seeking to escape conflict, natural disasters, and poor economic prospects by sailing across the Red Sea toward the oil-rich Gulf. In the meantime, Tunisian authorities have arrested 12 people, including a smuggler involved in organizing a recent crossing that killed 15 migrants after their boat capsized. On Monday, a boat said to be bearing some 60 migrants capsized off the coast of the southeastern island of Jadaba. Now, the Coast Guard had given an initial death toll of 12 passengers, all Tunisians, and including children and a woman, before later revising it upwards to 15. Authorities said they rescued 31 people and were still looking for the others. In its statement Wednesday, the Coast Guard said the main smuggler and his wife were among those arrested, adding that authorities seized 3 cars, a boat, and large sums of money. And now we're going to talk about cybercrime and how best to curb it. And we have a guest joining us now. It's none other than the Global Chief Technology Officer at NICA Technology Group, and that's Abdul Musa. Abdul, many thanks for joining us, and thank you so much for coming on to unpack this with us. So according to your observations, how significant is the impact of cybercrime on African economies and, most importantly, the businesses?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. If we look at the impact, I've done a bit of research and it seems to be increasing at a rapid rate. At the moment, we're sitting over $2.2 billion on the GDP across Africa, and that's increasing on over 200% year on year. So the situation is actually getting worse and worse every single year.
And what specific AI technologies or strategies is NICA Technology Group implementing to combat cybercrime? I mean, how does AI help in detecting or even preventing cyber criminal activities compared to traditional methods?
So if we look at the rate at which we're experiencing cybercrime, the cyber criminals are becoming more and more complex in the way that they're initiating the various cybercrime activities, and it can't be fought alone with just humans. National control and operation centers need to employ technologies like artificial intelligence, and we need a lot of data and information sitting all over the internet, and more importantly, what we call the dark web, which is an underground trading portal where hackers sit and discuss how they're going to steal information, how they're going to impact organizations. But more importantly as well is we need to start looking at the national security of every country, because warfare has also got a significant impact in terms of cyber. We're starting to see traditional warfare where we used to see guns in the hands of humans moving to cyber warfare. I mean, imagine if they shut down your electricity grid in your country, what the impact will be.
And what are your thoughts on the current level of investment in cybersecurity initiatives across Africa? Do you think it's sufficient, or does more need to be done?
Definitely more needs to be done, especially in the public sector space. We see a lot of adoption in private organizations within Africa, but from a public point of view, we're finding that governments haven't really recognized the need to put a lot of funding into cybersecurity. And there's also a lack of laws in certain countries as well that regulate what can and can't be done using electronic systems. And that's obviously fueling cybercrime, especially in the government sector. On a daily basis across the continent, we see many organizations that have been breached to a point where systems are offline, service delivery stops. So there needs to be a stance taken. And I think it's a continent-wide stance where we need to get together. I know in South Africa there were a few laws and acts that were introduced. They somewhat have an impact, but there's a lot more that can be done, and there needs to be a lot stringent frameworks in every country that ensures that an organization enforces relevant cybersecurity controls, which will unlock investments as well.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us, Abdul Musa. Once again, thank you.
Pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Now to update on the Middle East conflict. Riza Zabib, the ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Iran in Spain, says that if Israel attacks Iran, its reaction will be much stronger. He also declares that Iran is against war and calls on the supporters of the regime to stop the trend of aggression against other nations. Now, this is coming after former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett on Wednesday called for a decisive strike to destroy Israel's nuclear facilities after the Islamic Republic fired a barrage of missiles at Israel.
As well. No, we are against war. We don't see if see it necessary. And we call upon the supporter of regime to stop it on its trend of aggression against other nations and countries in the region. But we will react. As I mentioned, if there could be any aggression, we will react. But we are more than capable to defend ourselves, and this yesterday's response is a good indication of that. No, we are satisfied and we are happy. According to our information, almost 90% of the missiles reached their targets. But if they wish to think so, why not?
And now we'll switch gears to bring you the live coverage happening now as the U.S. Department of State is addressing the press regarding the conflict in the Middle East. Take a look.
Any specific site, but we have made clear to Israel that we do not want to see civilian infrastructure targeted. We don't want to see, obviously, civilian sites targeted. The airport is playing a crucial function in helping get American citizens out of Lebanon, as well as citizens of other countries who want to be able to leave, and we think it's important that the airport stay open for those purposes.
And did you understand from them the scope of their military operations in Lebanon and their goals or goals there?
So we have obviously had a number of conversations with them about that, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to speak to those conversations. Those are private consultations between our two countries. To the extent they want to publicly discuss their operations in Lebanon, I think it's appropriate for them to do so, but it wouldn't be appropriate for me to
and
do so.
Is the ceasefire offer still on the table, or it's already?
We ultimately do want to see a ceasefire that leads to a diplomatic resolution. That has been, we have been clear that that's how we see this conflict ending. Now, we do support Israel's right to target members of Hezbollah, to target Hezbollah infrastructure, but yes, we do want to see a diplomatic resolution.
And my final question, do you trust the UNIFIL and the Lebanese army to implement the 1701 UN Security Council resolution in the future?
We do believe they are both very important actors for ensuring stability, for ensuring the full implementation of that resolution. Obviously, if you look at the long history since that resolution was adopted, we've seen Hezbollah refuse to comply with its obligations. And so we would call, again, as we have over many years, going back, predating this administration, for Hezbollah to pull back from the border, to comply with the requirements of 1701. And UNIFIL and the Lebanese Armed Forces play a very important role in ultimately implementing that resolution. I would just say, the only thing I would say is that we are in the middle of a dynamic situation right now. Obviously, for some years, you've seen this difficult situation where the LAF and UNIFIL were not fully able to enforce that resolution because of the presence of Hezbollah forces who just refused to fulfill their obligations. We are in a dynamic situation right now. It's hard to say how it's going to shake out, but look, ultimately, what we want to see is that resolution implemented.
Thank you.
Yeah.
First, I want to press you on your answer to Tom. Israel declaring the Secretary General of the United Nations a persona non grata. We're not talking about the head of UNRWA. We're talking about the head of the UN itself. You said, your answer to him, you said that's not productive. You don't think that this is delegitimize an international body that provides an essential work, humanitarian work for civilians during this current war, whether it's in Gaza or Lebanon?
But we don't think it's a productive step at all, precisely because of the reasons you identify, which is the UN does incredibly important work in Gaza. It does incredibly important work in the region, and the UN, when it's acting at its best, can play an important role for security and stability. So we think it's important that Israel be able to engage with the UN. One of the things we've always said that Israel needs to be cognizant of throughout this conflict is its standing in the world. And steps like this are not productive to improving its standing in the world.
Sure, but do you condemn it? I mean, my point is, can you use any leverage to reverse this decision? Because
So I have made clear. I don't always like when people put other words in my mind or in my mouth. I've made quite clear what we think about this, and let's see what happens moving forward.
Okay. The second question is. The Secretary and you often say that Israel has the right to defend itself, but how it does it, it matters. So this morning, there were 6 first responders were killed in Lebanon, civilians. In Gaza, it's over 40,000, 70% are women and children. In Lebanon, is 1 million people are homeless. So when he says how it matters, if there's no consequences in Israel, doesn't his word carry no weight? Does it mean that it's really a statement for public consumption?
No, absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not. Look, wars have horrific consequences. They always have. They always will. And these wars have had horrific consequences for the people of Gaza and now for the people of Lebanon. It is why the U.S. has worked so hard to try to reach a diplomatic resolution to the conflict in Lebanon. And what you saw going back months is Hezbollah refusing to stop its attacks on civilian targets inside Israel. It's why we tried to reach a ceasefire agreement in Gaza that would ultimately lead to the guns being silenced, hostages coming home, humanitarian assistance surging in. We will continue to pursue both of those things. But in each of these cases, it is just a little more complicated than the question concedes. It is more complicated when you have terrorist groups that hide inside civilians. When you look at the death of Hassan Nasrallah last week, where was he? Was he on a military compound? Was he on a compound that Hezbollah built where there were only members of Hezbollah? No, he was underneath a civilian apartment building. And when you look at what has happened over and over again in Gaza, you've seen Hamas hiding, not just in apartment buildings, but mosques and schools. Now, we've been very clear with Israel that doesn't lessen their obligation to do everything possible to be mindful, to minimize and reduce and eliminate civilian casualties, but it's an extremely tough situation. It's every military in the world would face extremely challenging circumstances trying to take on a terrorist organization that was committed to targeting civilians, not just targeting members of the military, but targeting civilians. And at the same time, they do it hiding among civilians. That's what makes the situation so difficult.
And just finally, do you see this current escalation and a military conflict as a result of U.S. failed diplomacy, or is it Netanyahu's government trying to drag the U.S. into a bigger war?
So again, it's a little bit of a simplistic question about a complicated situation. There are 2 parties to this conflict.
I don't know, it's a simplistic question.
Israel is one party to this conflict, and Hezbollah is the other party to this conflict. When you look at the conflict in the north, it's a conflict that Hezbollah started on October 8th, that they could have ended any day since then. It's not a conflict that Israel starts, it's a conflict that Hezbollah started, that they could have stopped by stopping firing rockets. So I will say, as I said in response to an earlier question, we've been at similar situations over the past 12 months where situations were incredibly high and it looked like we might get into a full-scale war. And the combination of our deterrence and diplomacy and the hard work, not just of the United States, but our allies and partners in the region has been successful in preventing that from happening, which is never a prediction of future success. But to us, it tells us that we ought to stay at it and keep working and stay at the diplomacy and the deterrence, work with our partners. And that's what we are going to continue to do. Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll come.
And you are watching, the scenes they are watching is from the U.S. Department of State. They're just fielding questions from the press regarding the Middle East conflict, and they have maintained their stance on the conflict in the Middle East, stating that they are ready for a ceasefire and negotiations on the ground, but also are in support of Israel to support itself against Hezbollah and their communities and also their infrastructure and facilities. And they've also maintained that they would want to work together with all parties to see a de-escalation of violence and conflict in the region. You've been watching News Now on News Central TV, and that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. 60 bodies have been recovered. Many are missing in Niger State boat accident. House of Reps have rejected the national honor conferred on Speaker Tajuddin Abbas. We also told you that 48 have died, 75 are still missing off Djibouti coast in migrant boat tragedy. Now remember, you can always send us your eyewitness report, but also you can watch us live wherever you go on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and also stream us live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith, Atibi.